In this edition of Art Rocks, a Louisiana painter expresses her fun persona on canvas.
To be born in Louisiana, I feel it was like born into a treasure chest.
We find inspiration in an unlikely place.
I would like to see our audiences see the power of what people working together can do.
Grand landscapes converge with age-old allegories.
Whether that serves a social purpose or something beyond yourself, that's kind of hard to say.
And we tour a castle with galleries fit for a king.
His eyebrows are almost human hair from 15 different parts of my body because I don't throw anything away.
It's all ahead on this edition of Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine, and this is Art Rocks. To begin our program, we'll meet an artist whose passion for Louisiana is in everything she paints. Virgie Banks gives us insight into how she developed her unique style.
To be born in Louisiana, I feel it was like born into a treasure chest. My mother and father are both Creoles. I'm the third generation Creole. We grew up in the country, and we grew up with a lot of love and passion. At the age of 6, I started painting.
Virgie Banks' love affair with the canvas began early in her life. Her work is characterized by cubism and an exuberant use of color.
My favorite artists, I have several, but Picasso is one of them because I enjoy the expression, the simple expression that he using with cubism, the graphic design, the geometric design, and the color schemes. They all fit together for what I want to express with the cultures of Louisiana.
Her husband, Kendall, who is now also her manager, encouraged Virgie to go to college and pursue her passion for art. At age 27, she enrolled at USL in Lafayette. She thrived in the environment, exploring sculpture and metalsmithing along with painting, and graduating with honors.
Once I graduated, I needed to make a signature of myself so one can identify who's Virgie Banks as an artist. So I started creating the Little Red Tricycle, which is about myself, a little Creole girl on a journey. She is the type of fun little girl that wants to embrace everyone with a smile and want everyone that had a tricycle to embrace it. And that's what I get. When others come in contact with the paintings, they see themselves. They don't see themselves as the big plats or anything. They just see themselves in that journey of what they've done on their little red tricycle. And that's the bond between myself and the collectors. And it's just a unique love which I share with them.
Banks is also passionate about Louisiana's music. Zydeco and Cajun music are favorite subjects, as well as New Orleans jazz.
When I hear music, I see colors, and I see instruments, and I see, how I can take them and go into a totally different expression than anyone has ever seen. And that's what an artist should be. They should be able to have a uniqueness where someone can say, that's a Virgie Banks.
While developing a children's book based upon the Little Red Tricycle character, Virgie Banks continues to explore new forms of expression in her paintings.
My art has started off with cubism, simple subjects, and now it has evolved into non-objective. And the paintings, only the titles are depicting the culture of Louisiana. Still the bright colors, still geometric designs, but basically just colors.
In her journey as an artist, the source of Banks' inspiration was never very far away, for she's long appreciated the beauty and comfort of the place she calls home.
Louisiana, she is my roots, and I would not be fed if I had to move anywhere else. the zydeco music, the jazz, the foods. I would not get that anywhere else. I mean, it's so diversified, and that's what my art dictates. You know, it dictates to be diversified and to be able to enjoy what you feel around you.
To see more, visit littleredtricycle.com. Now, let's take a look at some of Louisiana's arts and cultural events coming up this week. For more information on these events, visit our website at lpb.org/artrocks. And to find more arts activities, check out countryroadsmag.com. For the last 40 years in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, Kohler Company gives artists unprecedented access to share studio space with its industrial workers. Now, over 300 of these artistic creations are on display in a first-ever retrospective. Here's a look.
We want to give people ways of getting together, of seeing the power of art, the delight of art. It's happened. This exhibit goes back many, many years. And in 1973, we wanted to do an exhibition of contemporary work in clay. And so we went to Kohler Company, because Kohler Company was celebrating its centennial that year. And we thought, what better way to celebrate the centennial than to use one of the major materials that they used. And so we curated it, brought work from all over the country. There were 87 artists in the exhibition with over 300 pieces. And people loved it, but most of all the artists loved it, because they had not been able to see such a large exhibition on contemporary work in clay. More than anything that we could do for artists, we felt, was to open up the factory for them to use, for them to gain new knowledge, to experiment, to create whole new bodies of work. It's called Arts Industry, Collaboration and Revelation, and it's all about what was made there, but perhaps equally important, that experience that the associates and the artists experienced. And I think you feel that as you go through and you begin to understand what was really happening through those years and how it changed through time, how the work became more and more sophisticated, less about the plumbing and more about a broad range of issues and ideas. One of the pieces that is a must-see is a toilet that is actually in the shape of the factory. One of my favorite works by Jack Earl, called Saturday Night in Ohio, and it is two guys taking a break and playing cards at a table. And the table, actually, the top can come off and it becomes a soup tureen. So it's an industry item that's been turned into art and then in turn has become a different functional object. The work of Jim Neal, it's a piece about war and was inspired by the Chinese warriors that in clay that were dug up. These are not human warriors, they are chimpanzees. And they wear various kinds of armor. And there are 50 of them who face you straight on. And you can't help but be overwhelmed by the power of them. Michael Sherrill is an extraordinary artist, and his work usually metal and clay, but it's very delicate floral pieces, and they are stunning. Sean Bussey created a work that is quite beautiful. The violins themselves are clay, and it's glazed, a beautiful white, and the cases that surround each violin is of iron. So it's this white against black, and just that makes it very beautiful, very evocative. The first work in the factory that incorporated both clay and iron was the work of an artist named Ron Fondau, and used the iron to create a base for the piece. One end rests on the floor and the other end rests on a cone of clay. The color, the yellows, the blues, against the white and the black are really stunning. Sarah Peters was a very young woman. She had a lot of spunk. The series of wigs that she made were especially beautiful. And today I try to go past them just because I love them so much. I would like to see our audiences see the power of what people working together can do, the power of collaboration, the strength of an idea, the persistence that it takes to make it succeed. What amazing things people can do when they work together.
To learn more, visit jmkac.org. Up next, artist Bruce Lowney explains the inspiration for his New Mexico landscapes combined with mythological overtones.
I feel I came of age in an apple orchard. Trees became important to me from that, and a tree is a good symbol. I've always liked the idea that it had a trunk and limbs, as do we, and it's reaching upward to the light. So that's ideally a metaphor for man, for mankind. I came here as a lithographer, and I was only later self-trained as a painter. For the last 36 years, I've been in the middle of a quarter section of nature and 160 acres out just past the Continental Divide, west central New Mexico. And the peace, the quiet, I needed as a refuge. I'm just going to self-protect in that way. Being a more or less interior person. I've always liked perspective, and the idea of infinity was important, and it was sort of a challenge to paint or draw clouds going back over hills. That grid system gives a framework for things lining up into the horizon. And that's a way to indicate infinity and the sublime of space. I call them impossible probabilities. They're naturalistic in only it's not painted from nature or drawn from nature. Maybe you don't realize till you look at it more closely that it's all arranged. It's just a predilection with me, I think, a little certain obsessiveness to line things up. Maybe I'm a quarter German, and maybe that's a German trait. I wonder about ethnicity. Once you've established the image and you're articulating with me, the naturalism, there's a point where the painting tells you what it needs. You try to engage your spirit in it, and they speak of that infolding where spirit, capital S, is within the artistic object, whether it's music or a poem or a painting. And if you're not careful, you can overwork it and bury it and deny that spirit. So it's a tenuous thing. In the myth of Actaeon and Diana, Actaeon is out with his buddies, and Actaeon sort of wanders away and comes into a glade, and here's this little pool. And of all things, the chaste goddess Diana bathing with her nymphs. And that is something mortal eyes cannot look on, you know. That innocence and that... and I see it in a poetic light, but that's the muse in a way. So she splashes water in his face and says, "What you've seen, you'll never speak of." And he feels horns, antlers growing out of his head, and his arms and legs turning into a deer's legs, and he hears his hounds. They've caught the scent of a stag. He realizes it's his dogs, and they run him down and kill him. In my use of that myth, Actaeon, with his collar up, walking along a wall and about to turn into where there's trees, and above that the quarter moon of Diana. And to his side, here are all these dogs, all hunting dogs, in coats and ties. You just see the top of them, but they're all going there, and he's looking like, if I can just get around the corner, I might be safe. So that's the narrow escape. Jung talks about the subconscious and the collective unconscious. And that's important to me, that I'm not just personally speaking from my background, but I'm ideally and hopefully speaking archetypally, where it's a shared, you know, in the human species, to have dreams that are related. You know, we could not that we share everything, but we can agree on certain symbols and things like that. So it's the collective unconscious that I hope to tap into. It's a strange profession. It is a profession. I always come back to it because it's who I have always been. An artist with that sensibility and living that life. In working in art, it's mainly, I think, pretty selfish. You're trying to find some degree of self-fulfillment in you know, to do a really good painting. You finish one and you go on to another, and you try to, you know, you're never off the hook. You're trying to do it better. It's a complex art, color and pigment and how you develop a painting. Like any profession, it's something you have to do, and you will die doing it. There's no retirement. There's no, you know, you die with a brush in your hand. Whether that serves a social purpose or something beyond yourself, that's kind of hard to say. You want to make something beautiful, at the same time making it right to your demands, and that should stand up to scrutiny and mean something.
To see more of Lowney's work, check out bslowneyart.com. Now, it's time to celebrate another Louisiana treasure. This week, we'll learn about a gift from France that honors the Maid of Orleans, Joan of Arc.
A gift from the people of France, the golden bronze statue of Joan of Arc is an exact copy of the famous 1874 equestrian statue located in Paris. It was delivered to New Orleans in 1958, but the city could not afford the $35,000 to properly erect it, and it was put into storage. Eventually, investors from New Orleans and France provided for a 17-foot pedestal for the statue, and it was erected in 1972 at the foot of Canal Street. The statue was gilded in 1985. Later, due to a casino being built at that location, the statue was moved in 1999 to Decatur Street in the French Quarter, next to the French Market. It's only fitting that Joan of Arc, known as the Maid of Orleans, should be remembered in the town that is its namesake. In 1429, Joan led French troops loyal to the monarchy, ending the siege of Orleans in just 9 days. It was a turning point in the 100 Years' War. Although she was tried for heresy at the hands of her enemies and burned to death at the stake at the age of 19, Joan has remained a legend for centuries. Today, Joan of Arc is one of the patron saints of France, and her story continues to inspire writers, composers, and filmmakers.
In our last segment, Florida resident Howard Solomon welcomes us into his home and gallery, a unique building reminiscent of a medieval castle. Starting with scraps of metal, wood, and even printing plates, Solomon has built an artistic fortress that continues to inspire him and those who visit.
My name is Howard Solomon. We're in Hardy County, and I've been here for 41 years. I think of it as my home. A man's castle is his home. My intention was to build a combination home and studio. There wasn't enough horizontal land for my plan. I built the castle because I had to build up instead of out. And one day, reading the local paper, I saw that the paper had an ad to sell printing plates for 10 cents a piece. And I said, well, that would be a very reflective material and it's rust-proof, and it would make a nice shiny castle. I learned as I went, and I made errors along the way, and some of the errors I have to live with. I learned whatever I had to learn, and it wound up to be something like 20 or 25 different trades. When I look at a piece of scrap metal, or junk as we call it, it reminds me of something. It might look like a nose or an ear or a hand. And that's the nucleus of the idea. Since I have my own junkyard, find pieces to go with it and just weld them together until it looks like something that you don't have to guess what it's supposed to be. It looks like what I intend it to be. I prefer to call my work Impressionistic Realism. I've always made wooden pictures, and they're called montage, which means made from one type of material. I got rather good at it. I made copies of the modern artists, precise copies to the size and the color, except instead of being on a flat canvas, I made them out of pieces of wood. The process of making those animals, actually making the animal twice. I start out with hoops made out of 1/4-inch diameter steel, and that creates the basic shapes of the body or the head. And then the next stage is to cover the whole sculpture with pieces of metal cut from oil drums. I could actually stop after the first process and have what you saw in the animal room with the coat hangers. It's a wire frame. In the case of the elephant and the lion and the eagle hanging from the ceiling and the fish man, those were frames covered with pieces of oil drum material. I built this when I lived in the Bahamas. in 1968, I think it was. That's a lampshade with a trumpet valve. That's a 1910 Ford kerosene lantern. This is from a Xerox machine with a shock absorber. The engineer is made out of mattress ticking and clay. His eyebrows are almost human hair from 15 different parts of my body because I don't throw anything away.
Growing up out at Solomon's Castle was, I thought everybody's dad was innovative and creative like my dad was. You really had to keep an eye on your toys. They're liable to disappear and be enveloped into a sculpting. My dad works in the shop every day. He's almost 80 years old, but I think that's what helps keep him youthful. He's active. He'll be in his shop 3 to 4 hours a day, sometimes up to 6 hours.
I started out making little owls, and then from my imagination and looking at different shapes of scrap wood, they turned into pointy-head owls or gnomes. I cut them, I take them over to the sander, take off the hard edges. I take them over to the welding table and burn off the fuzz or put some dark color into it with a torch. Then I put a little bit of urethane on them to cover up the burned part so it doesn't come off on your fingers. And I glue in the eyes and maybe a button nose, and it's all done. I make hundreds of them in a year's time, and they're inexpensive, and they're like a souvenir from Solomon's Castle.
People ask, you know, like, how did my dad do? How could he possibly do so much in a lifetime? He is very artistic, but I think the difference between my dad and most artists is he also has a great business mind.
I was born an artist and raised in a business atmosphere. So I have the unusual combination of both. My unique situation is I don't have to sell anything because people are paying me to look at it. If I sell something, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to have to replace it because it's foolish to sell something people are paying you to look at.
My dad pretty much raised me to believe in if you have a dream, you should go after it. You know, even if other people don't really understand it or accept it, be sure to keep compassion at the front of your brain and in your heart. And as long as you're not hurting anyone, and even if people don't really accept you or what you're doing, then you should do where your heart leads you.
I tell people that I retired when I came here. I was 37 years old, and my retirement became a hobby, and then it became a business.
To learn more, visit solomonscastle.org. And that's it for this edition of Art Rocks. Don't forget to visit the website at lpb.org/artrocks, where you'll find feature videos and information on upcoming arts events. So until next time, I'm James Fox Smith, and thanks for watching.